and welcome to Mirador Television. We are the biggest little TV in the world, based in Lewes, East Sussex in England. Our aim is to entertain and to spice things up a little. We will also keep an eye on the local politics, because let's face it, someone has to. Our programs range from stories about the local people to stories about people from all the way across the pond. Brought to you by our wonderful colleagues in New York. So why not sit back, relax with your favourite cuppa, or maybe your favourite tipple, and enjoy. This is Mirador Television.
Well, good morning. It's 7:33 on Wednesday morning, the 31st, the last day of March in 2021. And I wonder how many of us thought this time last year that we would be sitting here saying a year on, we are still easing our way out of this dreadful pandemic that has hit not just us in the UK, but worldwide. A pandemic. Yeah, that's what it means. It's a Greek word, dude, just to show off. The headlines this morning, though, some headlines are pointing out the fact that many people will now be released from shielding. And what does that mean? I think really what it means is that you can actually go outdoors and not be nicked for it. And that those people who have had letters, particularly those like myself, who the government suggests are very vulnerable, can walk through the front door and not have to worry too much. I probably don't have to worry too much. I've had the jab. But the jab of AstraZeneca continues to rumble on, with now Angela Merkel beginning to support Macron about whether it should be used or not, about its safety, despite the fact that every scientific examination of this vaccine has said that it's safe, and that includes the United States. I mean, we're not just pan-European here, or looking up our own backsides. We are actually ready to admit that this is a good vaccine. I've had no bad vibes from it. Nothing has happened to me, and I've had my second one. Yes, you feel a little lethargic the day afterwards. Then I can feel lethargic at the best of times. One of the things that has bothered me, though, is that I've got a bit of a tooth problem. And while it just shows how Sense and Sensibility disappears during a pandemic. I got it. I nurse my teeth very carefully because, as one gets on in life, you need to if you want to keep them. And I got it in my mind that dentists weren't open. But I was in such agony with a split tooth, a bit of it came away, that I looked up, and sure enough, they've been open since on and off since July. So I got hold of my dentist, with whom I think I've been with him almost 30 years now, and said, Martin, can you do something for me? And they are so busy that even with a favoured client such as me, all he can do is give me antibiotics to keep the pain down, and it'll be another week before he can see me. So if you do need dental work, don't leave it. Make sure you get an appointment quickly, because they are open, they are working, and indeed it is important that we don't let those bits of us decay, as it were. That's a good word for teeth anyway, decay, after we've been through everything and toughed it out, and here we are still, a little grayer, the hair a little longer. Thank God, I think the barbers get cracking again in a week or two. I need it. I certainly need it. But just do be careful, because, as one newspaper says, people rush to the parks and rush to the beach yesterday. But it hasn't come to a full stop just like that. First of all, there is the threat of a third wave coming in from Europe. They're already suffering it, so we know that it's there, and it always washes up on our shores eventually. But the other thing is that there has been a slight increase across our particular patch of cases, and that shows that we have to be vigilant still. Doesn't mean to say we have to be locked down, which is a thing that's getting into many people's minds. But by the same token, dancing around with the joys of spring and hugging everybody that you see on the street is still not on. We can't go to the pubs until next month, April, I think. And the rule of six came into play yesterday, and I think the rule of six will apply to pubs. We can sit outside with up to six people out of our little pod and have a pint. And a good many people, I think, are looking forward to that. Anyway, the news headlines, strange enough, are all about diversity this morning. The Times is a diverse UK hailed over narrowing a race gap. In other words, we've done rather better than the rest of the world, or many parts of the world, in making sure that racial bigotry and discrimination is easing and lessening here than it is elsewhere. The funny thing is that we always think in terms of discrimination being white against black. But I can tell you it can happen with white against white, black against black, and vice versa. And I know from experience. I'm not reading books on this. I've worked in over 40 countries. Well, I worked up to 40 countries in the world, and I've been to 60. So I know where discrimination takes place and why it takes place. Somehow when we get to carrying banners, we get it all screwed up. The fact of the matter is it shouldn't exist anywhere or at any level. But a study also out either today or yesterday says that we are much more discriminating because of social class. In other words, if you figure that you're way up the social ladder, you're not very tolerant to those people that are going to work on the bus every day. I'll tell you, I go to the bus as well. At the moment, I don't walk. I don't have a car anymore. I mean, it's a pain in the neck. It's like an albatross around my neck. I don't need it for the things that I do. When I go to London, the transport system is very good. 9 times out of 10, the transport system between here and London is very good. And all in all, the reason I go to London is to meet my mates now. I did up until lockdown. I went to work as well on about half a dozen days a month. It doesn't look as if I'm going to return to that, apart from which running this bloody television station takes up all my time. So trotting off to London to work isn't an option. But I had no difficulty in getting around. I mean, Lewis, the transport system, again, is pretty damn good wherever you want to go. So why pay hundreds of pounds for parking, £100 for insurance, hundreds of pounds for petrol? That's before you even thought about buying a car. I'm paying it back at 200 or 300 quid a month or whatever. Anyway, that's me. But anybody who wants to think that they're socially superior to me, go ahead. As the famous saying is, like duck's water off your back. Water off a duck's back, of course, is the correct phrase. But I'm afraid I don't feel inferior to anybody, but also I don't feel superior to anybody either. So join my club. Right. So we're narrowing the gap on that. The Daily Mail says they think it's all over. And there's a picture of everybody going to the park yesterday because lockdown was eased. And what it's really saying is we've got to be very, very careful. And it's exactly what I've just been saying. Be very, very careful because we're not out of the woods yet. And if this thing comes back, I am not so worried that we haven't got it under control medically, but have we got it under control psychologically? Because people are going mad, literally. I mean, the mental health is on the uprise because we've all been locked away, and we are social animals. All in all, we like to have neighbours. We like to have friends. We like to get together. We are familial. We like to go and see our families, even if that's difficult. So just be careful. Take it easy, and then it can last forever. As opposed to suddenly finding that we're going to be locked down. And some pundits are saying it's going to be another lockdown. And how Boris will handle that, heaven only knows, because that's going to be the most unpopular thing that he could ever do. Right, okay. They also say Britain's race revolution, a landmark report says UK is a model to the world on diversity and finds no evidence of institutional racism. So they are something else to march about. Keep your cool, says I think that's the Mirror. Is it? Yes, the Daily Mirror. Keep your cool. The hottest March day since 1968. But sun-loving Brits are warned, don't blow it. Yes, it's going to be hot today. Even here, it's going to be hot on the south coast. We're going to hit 20. I believe that it's going to hit 24 at some parts of the country. So don't march out, certainly without your suntan oil, but don't march out and lie within 6 inches of somebody in a park or on a beach because there's no room. Because all you're going to do is to set off a whole set of circumstances again that are just going to blow it and make it very uncomfortable for us. Let's see, it's 7:43. And we're just looking at the headlines of the newspapers. The Daily Express, hot but not bothered. Everybody is going on the fact that we're going to have this little bout of good weather. It's going to last yesterday and today, and then apparently the temperatures are going to plunge again. So do be careful. Don't take your scarf off just yet, and keep a hat on if you're going out into the sun. It's a couple of old timers and myself couldn't help it. Is the Noel Coward classic? The sun has got its hat on, hip 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 hooray! The sun has got its hat on and is coming out today. There, that's a bonus. That's copyright free. If you want to copy it, oh dear, 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 dear. In fact, I think what we better do is let's stop being silly and let's play the weather, shall we? I think it's.
And if I'm wearing a bikini, it's hot. Not that you're going to see me in a bikini very often. The body's gone, you see. Not a pretty sight.
Well, there you are. It's On hot days like this, you get to see me half naked, and nothing more can make me want to roar back into the house and not come outside for days. But the fact of the matter is, it is going to be very hot. We all want to get out when it's hot. And fortunately, I've got a busy day and it's going to keep me indoors. But even so, I'm quite sure that if I decide to take a break at lunchtime, which I often do, and I go down into the precinct in our little town of Lewis, and I sit and have a sandwich and a cup of coffee and enjoy seeing activity again. But I am very careful, and I'm happy to say that those people in the precinct so far have been very careful to stay apart from one another, stay away. And so, if it's hot, play play it cool. That's good, isn't it? Right. Gary Toynton is on, a very faithful viewer. Morning, Gary. He's asking how my tooth is because he heard yesterday that I was having a little bit of a problem. And the fact is, Gary, it was very painful during the night. I had a very strange night. I was up doing work at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then again at 4 o'clock. The cat came and sat on my head at 3 o'clock. So I haven't had much sleep. And if I fall asleep in front of the screen here, you'll understand why, and I hope that you'll forgive me. No, nobody will forgive me for that. I mean, it's bad enough having to listen to me. But hot, not bothered. That's as the Daily Express. A shiny ball of fire spotted in the sky. That's the Daily Star. Say we haven't seen the sun for such a long time, and now we're spotting it. The Eye. A UK vaccine warning from Oxford jab pioneer. In other words, look, be careful because if we rush out and we pretend that it's all gone, we're going to have to pretend that we know what summer is like. I would just as soon. I'm not a great sun worshipper, but I do like sitting outside a pub with a decent pint in front of me. And with some friends and being able to talk, things that I haven't been able to do really for almost a year. There's one a former presenter on the forerunner to Mirador Television, Lara Daniels, or Lara Richardson is her professional name. And just before lockdown, we went to a pub in Lewis and we sat outside. We had lunch, had a nice Sunday lunch starting at about 12. And when they closed at 8 o'clock, I had to come out and say, "Hey, you two, you stop talking and away you go." It just shows how much you miss that sort of social intercourse and being able to sit and talk to friends. And what we talked about, I couldn't tell you to this day. But nonetheless, it was all very interesting stuff for us, and we couldn't shut up. And I'm sure that many of us want to do that. And by all means, do it, but do it with caution. With caution, is for somebody who actually is a risk taker, who takes chances. For me to tell others to be cautious is a bit of a laugh. But nonetheless, with this, I don't want to see us return to no pubs, no shops, no people, no socializing. And we could easily do it if we're not careful. So be careful. And actually, my view on this coronavirus vaccine row, is it safe, is it not, should have we been fair, and so on and so forth, is a whole bunch of political rubbish. I'm glad I've had this vaccine, and I'm glad I've had the one that's in the news, because at least I know what I'm talking about now. And if you've had it, just relax. We're as safe as houses. That doesn't mean to say that we can rush off to the beach. No hugging pretty ladies in the street. If you're a male and about my age, the nice thing about hugging pretty ladies is you can get away with it now. They know that you're not any threat. Oh dear. Merkel and Macron turn to Putin for vaccines. The Europeans are going to the Russians to ask for vaccine. Well, that's the Daily Telegraph. And if that's the case, then they get dafter and dafter, don't they? But what can we do? The Sun. Alleged Sun's Troy Deeney. Why he's quitting social media over racists and bullies. Well, he's a footballer, and indeed, they come under the spotlight. Of course, they get people yelling and screaming at them. And it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant. I had one about 10 days ago. If you're in the spotlight at any level, you'll get these people and they'll dig up something that happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, just to embarrass you, as if we haven't all got skeletons in our cupboard somewhere. But these trolls are just awful people. And if anything, they should just have their computers taken away. Mind you, I take computers away from a lot of people, particularly the bankers and local not politicians as much as the local executives. But here is a story about Thierry Henry is the man who said, he had a bad time, and I'm sure he did. But at the same time, there's a report out saying we are the least racist country in the world. So if that's the case, there's improvement. Of course there is. There's always improvement in absolutely everything that we do. But it doesn't come overnight, and it doesn't come for the want of saying. You can say, don't do this, and whoopee, people just the next day don't do it. That's nonsense. And anybody who anticipates something like that is silly. We have got rid of a lot of isms. I'm glad that we're a tolerant society. We need to be more tolerant, but let's take it one step at a time. Because we were probably as intolerant as anybody 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Look how far we've come. Sarah, visual demo, the cops in the clear. I think there are two stories here. Who is that? That's a Metro. Yes, the Inquirer has said that the police didn't act too badly at the visual for the lady that was murdered. A second report, though, has said is that they could have handled it differently. In other words, not blameless, but not over the top either. So it's one of those, not a whitewash, but it's a mixed report, and we have to make up our own minds, I think, about these things. Oh, let's stop me rambling from it. Any more papers to look at? Oh, the Guardian. Ofsted plea for power to check for abuse in private schools were ignored. That story in the Guardian seems to be at somewhat bit of a scandal that's arising in schools is that there is abuse of many sorts. And it's not just talking about sexual abuse, it's talking about all sorts of abuse, is that the Ofsted wants the power to be able to check these things. And of course, Ofsted doesn't have power over private schools, like Eton, for instance. So they're asking for powers to be able to investigate to see what's what and what's going on. The Financial Times, banks 20 billion Archegos fire sale sparks scrutiny from the regulators. Now, with the Greenshill incident fresh in our minds, and with some scandal probably about to arise on that one, that is the finance company financial company that supported the steel industry. And when steel went bust, it was because the finance company had gone bust. So the regulators are taking a look, and it looks as if our regulators, now that we're coming out of lockdown, are beginning to say, "Hey, hang on, there've been a lot of things that have we may have taken our eye off the ball because of the pandemic, but now let's go back and see what's happening." So that broadly is what the newspapers are saying. The headlines are well, we can. I think what we'll do is we'll take a look at the headlines in a minute, because I think that it is time for us to remember those people who have been so good to us during the lockdown period. And there are many, there are half a dozen more who were good to us too, who advertised. And we will actually give them, when we start afresh next Tuesday, which is the 6th of April, when hopefully we can shuck off. I mean, if you saw this studio now, and I'm not going to show you, it's a complete chaos. And yet, just before the latest lockdown, it was humming. It was almost efficient. And now it's just me here, surrounded by equipment all over the place, newspapers all over the place, and it's got to have a good tidy up and be set up again. And we have got the people that know how to do it. It's a question of now making sure that they're able to get out and get in here safely. Anyway, here are a couple of the people who helped.
When you've missed the train, don't despair. Have a nice cup of coffee. And perhaps a mince pie. At the Runaway on Lewis Station. After that, why worry about the next train? The Runaway on Lewis Station. Relaxation beyond compare.
Well, thank you to those people. Let me just mention that we are heading towards not a rebirth, but we're a new season. Let's put it that way. Come next Tuesday, in which we hope that the team that we've had in the past, some of them will come back, and one or two people that we've discovered in lockdown who are very talented, and we hope that we can put together a really good team. And I have to say, I'm a long in the tooth broadcaster. A lot of things that I don't understand, a lot of things that I'm a complete dimwit about. But broadcasting, I do understand, and I've got a fair track record in actually recognizing talent and bringing it to the fore. But out of Lewis, I discovered three ladies who could make it onto the national scene, if only the national scene was sensible enough to go looking for these people, but they don't. They leave it to people like us. So the three ladies there. There are a couple more that we can bring on. And in the background, we've found a couple of talented people as well. If it hadn't have been for lockdown, we would have been still a very strong unit pushing out really good programming. We're almost going to have to start from square one. And I hope that some of those people that were with us before will come back and join us and make sure that this is as good a television service as you can find anywhere in the world. And, it's different. It's quirky. We don't try to emulate the big boys. We've got neither the resources or what is it? The energy, I suppose, to do the things that the big boys can do because they've got deep pockets. We haven't got any pockets at all. We're still hoping that we're going to get some little bit of support from the local council, but we've got a lot of talent, and Lewis can really be very satisfied. It sees itself as an artistic town. Well, in television terms, it is. And I hope that some of those people, I mean, Stephen Catlin, who does keep an eye on the council stuff, he's actually got a senior member of the CIA in the United States who's a fan. Who watches him regularly and then says, oh, I just watch. I love watching Stephen presenting his news on the local council. So we've got some terrific people, and I mean, let's just show you one we haven't mentioned lately, and I think that hopefully she's going to come back. Is Jane.
Hi, I'm Jane at Mirador Television, and I love to recycle, upcycle, renovate, decorate, paint, and if I can find any old junk, I'm happy to turn it into something else. So in the next few months, I'm going to give you some ideas and show you what I'm up to at home, from turning tins into bins, making garden cushions, and my recent find was a Lloyd Loom ottoman, which has a wonky leg, but I'm going to try and renovate the leg and find some lovely fabrics. So lots going on. This week, I'm just going to show you a couple of old cot bumpers that I found hanging around the house from some time ago. And I thought, well, I don't want to waste the foam. I'll turn them into some seat cushions for the garden bench.
She's got a great sense of humour. Jane, why have we got the cloud back? We shouldn't have the cloud back. No, there we are. I'm the cloud. If anybody's got the gloom and the doom news, it's me. And shielding is coming to an end for millions. And that sounds like good news because I'm one that's supposed to have been shielded. I keep on getting letters telling me what to do. Go to the back of the house and stay there like a naughty boy, put the dunce cap on. And it has not been easy. But that is all coming to an end for us, and whoop-de-doo, hooray, hooray! Yes, I'm one of them. But the funny thing is, isn't it funny that bureaucracy can't help doing anything without putting a sting in the tail? Because the same letters say, "Oh, by the way, if you've got any benefits as a result of the lockdown, is that going to end?" Hey, here's the good news: you can go out. Here's the bad news. If you want to spend any money, we're taking it away from you. Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. But I think that actually governments are going to be having a lot of economic problems themselves, and they will need our support. They will need our support, and don't you forget that, because we as the constituents, if you like, we as their audience, we are the people who they were supposed to be looking after. But once they're going to have to do it. Otherwise, I fear that some of them are not going to return to the wonderful world of Westminster and their subsidised meals and their bars and all the other things that they get, house swaps, mortgages, you name it. So you stand your ground. Get upset if you're upset about something and voice it. You can voice it on Mirador. We'll as long as you don't actually libel anybody. And as long as it's moderate language, I mean, obviously some trolls get silly, but we'll give you a voice. Very happy to do so. So find us, and you will find that there is a way for you to actually get online, and you can leave a message. So that's where we are. Gary Toyland certainly does that. Right, okay, but the Scottish party, the fight goes on between Alex Salmond and Nicholas Sturgeon north of the border. I mean, if the Scots really want to turn themselves into an unseemly lot, all they need is let those two loose. Is and now they're clashing over whether they should have another referendum to say whether they should be part of the EU or whether they should, or UK, or whether they should leave or not. Now we're talking about the pubs opening again. Here's another one for you if you're thinking of rushing back and filling yourself with one over the 8 pints. That there are sobriety ankle tags. They're going to be rolled out across England, and if you get drunk and you get nicked, what happens is you get tagged, so that they know where you are. So if you get into trouble with booze again, then out the police can come and nick you or stop you creating havoc in towns and so on. Some people would say, "Oh, well, that's Big Brother again, isn't it?" I suppose to some extent it's our shades of Big Brother. But what we have to do is to make a common sense assessment of how we handle various things. And there is no question that if you're on a train or a bus, or if you're walking in the street later at night, and somebody is drunk and becomes aggressive, it can be quite frightening. And in fact, if they become aggressive so they actually use violence, it's even more frightening, and that can scar you for a long time to come. So perhaps this is a good idea. Anyway, debatable, but there you are. And anything else that is terribly exciting? I don't think so. Locally, will they or won't they? The rumor is the unconfirmed story, and it is unconfirmed, and let's be fair, that Southover is going to be sold. The council offices are going to be sold. Is floating around. Supposed to be an announcement this week. It hasn't been so far. But by the same token, when we started to moot this on Monday, nobody from the council has come back and said, "You're wrong, shut your mouth, stop starting such rumours." And if you think, does it matter because Mirador is just a potty little television station? Let me tell you now that Stephen Catlin, particularly when it comes to council affairs, gets one terrific following. And all you need is 500 or so people listening to you, and you've got other people who then go and talk to other people and so on and so forth. I mean, that's what the whole idea of viral is, isn't it? What is it? 8 minutes past 8 o'clock for those of you who are interested. And today is going to be a 20 in Lewis, 24 in other parts of the country. Now, one of the things that I started to talk about the other day and didn't really finish is that a gentleman called Rupert Lloyd Thomas is on the way back, a Louisian of some considerable note, who has been at the forefront of all sorts of projects, including rocket radio and well, to some extent, it'd be helpful with Mirador Television. But one of his great successes is the Firle Hill Climb. And he sent me a message the other day to say he's coming back to try and help it get going again. Whether, in fact, they'll have time, whether lockdown will end sufficiently for it to be a success, I don't know. But I think that it's really well worthwhile taking a look at what it's all about for those of you who don't know. So here is the Firle Hill Climb. Rupert Lloyd Thomas is the driving force, or one of the driving forces. I think it's the Bo Peep Drivers Club who actually promote it, and it's just around the corner from the Firle estate, so not very far from Lewis at all. So let's take a look.
Of the Firle Hill Climb, doesn't it?
Well, thanks to the Gun Hill Studios, they gave us permission to use that 3 years ago, I think it was, and a nice piece of video it is. It's very well made. Gun Hill Studios, which I think come out of Hailsham, certainly Sussex based. And if you want just any video done, they're the people to go to. As you can see, very nice job. But anyway, the Firle Hill Climb, you can see some of the superb cars that they have in it. And it changes year in, year out. It's quite historic. It was first done in 1930, 32, 33, thereabouts, and was only stopped. Well, it stopped for the war, of course, but it was only stopped when we ran out of rubber in the UK. And they couldn't justify, the organisers couldn't justify using the tyres for a hill climb. But it's a great day out, and if we certainly will be covering it and letting you know about it if it takes place. And hopefully Rupert Lloyd-Thomas himself will be on in the not too distant future to talk to us about what the plans are and what his hopes and aspirations are for that. Okay, it's 13 minutes past 8. Doesn't the time fly when you're having fun? And one thing that I think that we need to talk about is the support that has been or has not been given to small businesses in lockdown. There's been a lot of folderol about how many millions have been given out by the local government, not local government, but by the government, and administered to some extent by the local government, the district council. But it hasn't all been even-handed. And one of the things that I think that once we're through lockdown, we've got to take a look at is there is no sense in governments urging young people in school to become entrepreneurs. Get out there and form your own business and do this and do that and do the other, and then have them as the one group that did not get support, proper support throughout lockdown. And they didn't. We didn't. And it's been tough. I mean, I personally have gone broke because I put all my money into trying to keep Mirador Television alive, and hopefully I've just about made it. And that we're as of next week, we will start to become part of the community again. That we will be sufficiently alive that some people will come and support us by using us to tell their story about their business when they'll be open, what they do. But also, one of our themes is shout it loud. Lewis is great. And, you know, shout it loud, Lewis was great. And I'm not suggesting that it isn't at the moment, but we've gone to sleep a little bit because we've been subject to the lockdown, but also there's been a great change in the makeup of our population. And it takes time for those sort of things to settle down, for people to decide what they'll support and what they won't, what they want and what they don't. So Lewis got into turmoil. But the fact is that it is an incredible town with an incredible history. Documentary, which you can buy. Well, you can actually see it in various places still, which we've been commissioned to do a second part, but we weren't able to because of the lockdown. Documentary, The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town, shows that well before the Conqueror, that Lewis had blood spilled on its high street, and right through to perhaps not blood, but to the year 2000, when we flooded and the town was under threat from there, the history has been quite dynamic. And if I may say so, one of the things that is not known particularly well, and that is that we boast, we haven't, as a country, we haven't been invaded since 1066. When William the Conqueror and his Norman supporters, armies, landed in Hastings, fought the Battle of Battle, at Battle, and then settled Norman influence and Norman laws and Norman rule, not all to the bad, I may say, across England. But we were invaded in the Hundred Years' War, which stretched from the 1200s to the 1300s, because the French sailed up the River Ouse and took over Lewis and raised the tricolor, if it was a tricolor in those days, over the town. And it was only because of, by the French admission, as 200 very sturdy English bowmen in the Priory who defended vigorously and would not give in, is that the invading hordes didn't stay and start to take it all over again. So this town has more than that sort of history. Before people start to get uptight, yes, Rye, Hastings, Seaford, Rottingdean, and down to Littlehampton, all were invaded. But we are inland. That's the difference. It wasn't just landing on a beach and having a go. Is we were inland, and they came up the Ouse from 6 or 7 miles and got hold of Lewis. So you can see that was a real threat, not just let's paddle around on the beach, chaps, and see what we can get. So a great history in this part of the world, and I hope that there are reenactments which have all had to stop, of course. Bonfire, to do with the burning of the martyrs and the death, actually, of Queen Mary, Queen Bloody Mary, who burned people at the stake because they would not return to Catholicism. And that is a very, very big occasion in Lewis. In fact, it's the biggest in the world. And our little town of about 17,000 people, if it's a really, really nice night, and if it occurs on a Saturday, will swell to as many as 100,000. That's some jump. Believe me, that's some jump. And in other years, even if it's been a bit wet and so on, it's still 40 or 50,000. That's a lot of people to cram into a little town. They do. Authorities do their best to dissuade people. They make sure that the trains are stopped from stopping, as it were. But we have big celebrations about all sorts of things, and the Battle of Lewis is recreated, and other events, very colourful, because we've still got our castle. We've still got, well, the ruins of the Priory, which was built in started building in 1068, I think. Yes, only about 4 or 5 years after the Normans came ashore. And we still have a number of manor houses out of Cleves. The Church of St. Thomas, it goes back to Roman times. The thing that I like is that apparently one of the streets in the area called Cliff, South Street, was said when Lewis was a thriving port, to have almost a dozen or more brothels. It's only a tiny street with tiny houses. The mind boggles. However, that's the rich history that we've got, and that's the rich history we try to reflect, and Louisiana's tried to reflect. So let's all do it together. Let's tell the world. Let's shout it loud. Lewis is great. And just before lockdown, we managed to get the mayor of Lewis, Delaware, to chat to our mayor, John Lamb. And they spent a half hour in front of the cameras discussing the various problems, and both agreed. And then, of course, we had lockdown, but they both agreed that, yes, we really should talk more because we've got common problems and we've got a common heritage, and we feel strongly about Lewis and Lewis. And so there are all sorts of things that we can do, and I hope that we get back to doing. But it needs the support of the community to do these things. And I hope that the community hasn't changed so much that we can't and don't get behind making Lewis great, a name to be conjured with. Because believe it or not, it's okay to say you come from Lewis. A lot of people know it. Many drinkers know it because of the brewery. The Harvey's a brand of beer which you can find at almost every pub in the country, even though it's based in this small town of Lewis. So, in many ways, there are lots of things that we do, lots of things that we can do to make sure that Lewis is great, and that it is reflected in the in the background, and the things that we do, and the things that we support, and the things that we innovate. Let's just remind you again about us. Well, there we are. That's a little taste of Lewis, a lovely town, and this is where Lewis, where Mirador Television is based. I am feeling the effects of having been woken up half a dozen times during the night, mostly with a bad tooth, and most people have experienced that. It's the pain is being held off just at the moment with a tablet, but do actually go to your dentist as frequently as you can. Don't lose your teeth. They are working. The dentists are working. They're ready to take you in and try to look after your teeth. So get on the phone and make sure that you make some sort of appointment to have them looked after, as indeed I have. Now let me make my own plea, because I am still homeless. I am still looking at taking my sleeping bag and my gin and tonic in a flask and lying out in the street at night, looking like homeless. It's not as if I can't afford the rent. I probably can afford the rent, despite everybody wanting to take every penny that I've got off me. Isn't that always the way? And it's a question of finding a nice place, a nice room, or a nice family to live with. And in many ways, I suppose that I'm looking for as much social discourse as I am a nice, comfy place to stay. I can be a curmudgeon, I can be difficult, but actually, you rub my tummy and I purr like a kitten. Not a bad house gift to have. Okay, here we go. 26 minutes past 8, and that means that only 4 minutes left of looking at this, and 9 times out of 10 it takes us about 10 minutes, 2 minutes to wrap up. So just let me remind you of the headlines again. The main headline is that shielding is coming to an end for millions, and if you're like me, slightly aged, nicely aged, I may say. I mean, I'm like a barrel of port. The more you age me, the tastier I become. But those of us who are aged and vulnerable because we've got some underlying condition, which I also have, and I've never tried to hide it. I've got Parkinson's, and I fight as best I can. And one of my great satisfactions is that I know other people who have Parkinson's or have family who have Parkinson's, and I try to help them because not only has positive thinking proved to be valuable, and my consultant has proved that. But if you actually get together with people, you can actually talk up support between yourselves, confidence that you can beat this damn disease, because it is to do with a little bit up here, or that controls our movement. And I do have sometimes, occasionally, a problem reaching for a glass of wine, would you believe? And I misjudge and I knock it over. And that really upsets me, because spilling alcohol is not in my psyche. Alcohol has only one way to go, and that's through the mouth and down into the tummy or wherever. But there are ways of trying to tackle many diseases, many problems, and we mustn't let the psychological aspects of these things overwhelm us, particularly because we've been through lockdown. But anyway, that's only those are the people who are shielding is coming to an end for. A survey, a fairly in-depth survey, has come to the conclusion that we are the least discriminatory nation in the world when it comes to race and so on. In fact, another study suggests that where we are rather nasty people is because we still see social grading. That certain people at the top of the tree, and you stay where you are, Charlie, my boy. Yeah, you actually just don't get above your station, as they used to say. So there is the bit about how we treat our neighbours. I must say, I really have. I say I have no isms. Consciously, I have no isms. But you know, a lot of the stuff that has to be wiped out and probably will never be wiped out is those things which I picked up as a boy and in the middle of the 50s and the 60s. And the view was very different then to what it is today. But it has changed over 50 or 60 years. If you want things to change, if you want people's attitudes to change, within 5 minutes, you're in for a disappointment. But bit by bit, you can get social attitudes and social mores to change. A couple of other stories there that I saw. Oh yes, if you're a drinker, just be careful about getting out of control with 1/8, or even 1/2 or 3 now, because I'm sure that we're not as used to drinking as we were, because you can get an ankle strap thingamajig, what do they call it? An ankle tag. Yes, you'll have a thing put on your ankle if you're convicted of any sort of drink fueled offence, so that people know where you are and what you're doing, and that they make sure that you don't get antisocial again from booze. It's 8:30. Right. I didn't realise that we'd gone that far. So I'll be back tomorrow with Paul Fowle. In between time, we were working very hard to make Lewis great, making Mirador Television great, and to get back to where we were before the lockdown. We need your help. We need your support. And hopefully we'll get it, because Lewis is a special place. It is a special town. And if there's anywhere that local people will get behind you, it's here. All right, here you are. Till tomorrow, I think. Toodle pip. Yes, toodle pip.